Hello and welcome to In the Art Scene podcast, a place where creatives share their stories. My name is Galina Marquez, and I have another cool story prepared for you today, so let's get to it. Hello everybody and welcome to the new episode of In the Art Scene, and I am having a special guest today, well, like I do every time. Her name is Kristin Peterson. Kristin, I don't know where you're from. So I would actually let you introduce yourself and tell you where you're from, and then we're going to be talking about your interesting approach to art, which I personally adore. I'm watching all your 5-minute challenges, and the whole idea of ugly art speaks to me a lot because I tend to, get in my head and get a little bit perfectionist, and it kind of bothers me. So I really admire what you do. So
Well,
why wouldn't you introduce yourself first?
very good. My name is Kristin Peterson. I go as Altered State Studio on Instagram. I have also had a blog for a long time. So I do a little creative blogging along the way. I was born and raised in South Dakota. We've kind of moved around a couple spots. We lived in Minnesota for about 20 years and just recently moved back to South Dakota. So I'm back kind of where I started. So that is just a little bit about me. So
I have never been to South Dakota. I'm yet to discover that place. So
well, right now it's the middle of March, and to be fair, like it should be nice here, but today it is really exceptionally cold, like unseasonably cold today. So,
then it's a good day to, get stuck on Zoom and have a little conversation on the podcast.
Absolutely a perfect day.
All right. Well, how long have you been doing art?
Oh, gal. I actually, like, to be fair, like I feel like I had a really creative life, childhood. So even as a kid, my mom, both of my parents actually were really good about having stuff available. Like I remember sewing and painting. There was a place that I could go in town and they offered pottery. I feel like I had the opportunity to kind of try a little bit of everything. My mom and my grandma were both artists. And I remember I don't know, they did a lot of things over the years. So we would go to arts and craft shows and fairs during the summer, that kind of stuff. And, I would hear them talking about different things, like when they were painting or whatever, certain things, they'd kind of like critique each other. And so when I started kind of taking classes, it was like, I felt like a newbie, kind of getting my feet underneath me. But at the same time, it was really interesting because I would hear somebody say, "Oh, you got to look at this for your composition," and it was like, "Oh, I think I have actually heard that before."
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yes, yeah. So it was interesting to kind of put some of the pieces together, some of the things that I had heard them talk about, and then actually, kind of put that together. But that's not to say that I picked up on it like super quick and easy. Like some things, I still had to hear several different ways or have it explained different ways or approached differently for me to really be able to grab hold of whatever that concept was. So, yeah.
So your mom and your grandma were professional artists.
Yeah. My mom, yeah, they both were. I mean, they did they did like wheat weavings, but my grandma was a watercolorist. So it was interesting because she would do, her things were more realistic. And my mom was kind of this happy medium between realistic and abstract. And then, of course, especially when I was first getting started, like I didn't feel like I had the skills. So it was like abstract is better for me. Not that realism, not that I can't quite get there, but I just tend to think that's just not my speed. So yeah.
Well, and you took the abstract to a totally different level.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna say thank you for that. I appreciate it.
When I watch your videos sometimes, and you're like, okay, I'm doing a little blob here with my paint water, so it's just the dirty water from something like, how does this work? Do I need to specifically make a dirty water?
I probably should clean that water out sooner beforehand, but it is, yeah,
I have a bucket of dirty water on my desk at all times. So anyway.
Perfect.
So did you mentioned classes. Did you take classes like just as extracurricular activities, or did you actually go study art?
That is a great question. And I contemplated it. Like I took classes certainly in high school. But at the time, I don't know, you struggle with the whole confidence. And especially when I was younger, I just didn't really feel like I could do that. So I did take a couple classes in college, but I ended up going into the medical field. So yeah, I took kind of a left turn and I've done really well. I've liked that really well. But it wasn't until we kind of when we moved to Laverne and I was closer to like my mom and my grandma. I was really fortunate because here in Watertown, they actually had kind of a group of artists here that used to bring in like really big name artists once a year during the summer. And so I got on the list to take a class, and then like every summer in June, I would come to Watertown and take a class. And typically speaking, they were probably watercolorists, which I'll be perfectly upfront about, like, that is not quite always my jam. I struggle with watercolor sometimes. Like I feel like I'm just starting to really kind of get the grasp of it. But at the heart of it, I feel like the same concepts, no matter what you're taking across the board, are same. So you should take the class, whether that is your MO or not, because it's still really about the teacher, the instructor, and really hearing how they approach it. So
I'm actually a little bit surprised. Like I'm having problems with watercolor because that's the medium I cannot control. I mean, everything else, acrylics. I just tried oils the first time in my life, or mixed media or something. You kind of have a control of everything. Watercolor, you kind of have to let go. But when I'm looking at what you do, like you don't try to control anything. So I'm a little bit surprised that watercolor is not your forte.
And when I say that, so if I use it and it's like, I'll say straight. So I'm not mixing anything. If I'm just like using the color and applying it and doing it that way, like I feel like that part is okay. But if my whole painting is watercolor, then it is really, I have kind of like a color palette. Like I have to stick within that so that I know how I expected. That's the trick. Otherwise it ends up kind of muted and muddy, and not muddy in a good way. So yeah, that it's interesting,
Yeah, watercolor is definitely something different.
Yes.
All right. So you went to a medical field. Are you a doctor? What kind of doctor are you?
No, I actually, at the heart of it, I'm actually a rad tech, a radiology tech. And then I did cardiovascular, and the bulk of my work, I actually did infection control for our local hospital, and did emergency planning. So that's where the bulk of my work has been. So, yeah.
And how long have you been in the medical field?
Oh God, I think a long time. We'll leave it at
that. Okay. And you were continuing making art during your medical career, nonetheless.
Yeah, it started off kind of small. And when I say small, I shouldn't say small. You start and it's new, and um, it takes a while to kind of find your voice and what you like, and that kind of thing. And then part of the reason why I started the blog was to really kind of track my progress, and really kind of put things that maybe I had learned into one spot, so I could kind of circle back and share, and just being able to really, yeah, see where I've been, so I know and I remember. We all start somewhere, and it we make a lot of art to get to where we're
Yes,
at.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. So, do you get back to your early blog posts to kind of revisit where you were?
Oh,
And oh my
we
goodness,
have
that's a
a puppy.
cutie.
I
We have a
love
cameo here. You guys
yeah.
cannot see, but this is an adorable husky.
She is being a goof here. Oh, sorry. What was the question
Yeah.
again? I'm
So,
sorry.
yeah, we were talking about your blog and you documenting your process, and I'm curious how often, if at all, you're getting back to the earlier stages and revisit your blog posts and kind of reread and like not just at the glance see your progress, but actually go and study where you were and what you found in certain places, how you discovered those things. So, do you revisit that often?
It is really interesting. So, I think it was 3 years ago. I had my blog since like 2009, and I used like Blogspot, and did all my blogging, had everything there. And then I had decided I had kind of come to that little crux where it was like, oh, I really needed a website, somewhere to really be able to house everything. And so when I made the move, it was like, well, I still wanted to continue to blog. Um, and at first it was kind of this nice clean cut, like, what I had written before was fine. And to be fair, like the whole COVID has been super weird. And so I haven't been quite as faithful about blogging as I had been. But I would say in the last like 6 months, 8 months or so, I have circled back more and more to really kind of look back at where I was and what I did. What did I talk about? Sometimes it's good to be able to really circle back to, again, sometimes you feel like, am I still on that right path? You know what I mean? And you just need to go back and really look and see. And it was like, oh, yep, no, this is good. You know what I mean? And so I have added in the last couple, periodically gone back and grabbed a link from a post from before to say, you know what I mean? Take a look back here and be able to kind of compare notes a little bit. So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, because oh my goodness, I just can't. What's her name?
Her name is Coda.
Coda. Oh my gosh, she's adorable.
Oh, thank you.
All right, sorry guys, you don't get to see her, but this is a treat for me today. All right. Um, so how ugly art came about?
uh,
That's the question that because to me this is a totally different level, because I feel like at least in my own skin, I feel like you start always with studying something very conventional, the whole thing about color theory and composition and all of that, and then making studies maybe sometimes something very representational or realistic. Not always, not everybody do that, I guess, but we still kind of have to start with basics and take those basics and transform into something that what you do, what, like you call it ugly art, like straightforward, it's ugly art, but it is fascinating. Like when you don't know all of those basics, you cannot make ugly art that will be very aesthetically pleasing, which is what you do.
Bless your heart.
So to me, it's a mastery. I'm not there yet. Like I'm far away from that, but that's something I would really love to explore later on in my art career. And I mean, I'm being like just fascinated and stuck. I can watch your 5-minute videos, like 5-minute challenges over and over, like one after another after another. It's like in my YouTube playlist. So uh, I assume that you did not start with that. It kind of it evolved from something. So how did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, so the concept really is from my girlfriend Tiffany Goff Smith. She was really the one that had the whole idea, and then partnered with Dee Dee Catron and myself. So it's the three of us, and our focus really was really about the creative practice and being able to say, you know what, this, it might not be post worthy and it doesn't have to be. And I mean, I'll be the first one to say, you know, especially when you're new and you're trying to practice and you're trying, you know, those techniques, the colors, the color theory, the composition, the whatever. I would say part of my trick, certainly when I was much newer, and really trying to find that, is pick out one area of this whole hot mess that you like, and just show them that one little corner that is super awesome. You know, you have to allow yourself the freedom, right, to be able to play, to really discover, oh, I should have stopped, you know, 5 steps ago, versus, you know, if you never make that. The other thing I would say too is that it's hard sometimes, because you might like something initially. You think, oh, I really like this, you know, but it could be better. And it's making that leap of faith and just going for it. And in the middle, I'm going to tell you, there will be an ugly phase, and you'll be like, this just needs to go away. So you either keep forging ahead and, you know, come out the other side, or, I mean, worst case scenario, it's only paper, you know what I mean? And yet toss it, or again, cut it up, use it for something else. Find that one little spot that you're like, oh, this part looked awesome. I really liked this. You know what I mean? And I do remember there was one class that I had taken in particular, and my composite, I finally took it up to the instructor and I said, I need some help with this. And he looked at this and he says, oh, Kristin, this is what the scissors are for. He goes, you just go ahead and you just cut that part off over there. And he said, it'll be fine. And I was like, well, thank you. Okay, I will do that. You know, I mean, sometimes you just got to use the scissors and cut that off, you know? But the Ugly Art Club is really, it really is, you have to play, and you have to have that freedom. And it really is freer maybe for people if there's not that pressure that they have to show, or, you know, I think sometimes. So, yeah.
Well,
I feel blessed to be a part of it.
well, that's a great segue to talk actually about Ugly Art Club.
Yes.
So, which I know you have launched, a couple months ago?
We launched actually last September, believe it or not. So
yes, that's correct. I remember that live on Instagram that you did.
yeah.
And yeah, I missed the enrollment for the initial one, and then now you're opening the new enrollment, if I am
We
correct.
did in January. And
I
then
missed that one too.
Okay.
Oh my God.
It's pretty short, to be fair. Like, it's short. You got a couple days to hop in. And if not, then you'll have to wait. But we'll be opening the doors again the very beginning of May. So
that's when I'm having a baby.
Oh, nope. Then that won't be good time either.
But I'll be following you because one day I'll catch on this train.
Yeah, yep. It's all, it is, some of it is timing and what works, you know what I mean? And that's perfectly fine too. So, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this club. What do you guys do there, and how do you work with everyone who signs up? What, yeah.
What it is. So normally each month we'll have kind of a theme. And then each of the founders, so Tiffany, we each make a video. Tiffany normally goes first. I go like the second weekend, and then Dee Dee is the third. We have also had guest artists who also make something. So inspirational videos that kind of walk you through what we've made, just to provide some other ideas, a different approach to whatever that theme might be. And then if they post, if they are, it doesn't have to be participation, but if they post, if they make something with whatever our theme is, then we go through and normally give a gift card at the end of the month, that kind of stuff. The end of the month too, we normally do like a fireside chat. And so anybody that's able to can kind of hop on, and we can talk about, kind of lessons learned, what they liked, wins for the month. We had a really great discussion actually about organization, and that was really just really good. We really enjoyed that particular chat. So, and then this month is National Craft Month. So we're actually doing a couple games of bingo. So we've got a bingo card out there that's actually open for everyone. They can do, vertical, horizontal, diagonal. There's a free square in the middle, but super fun just to play and encourage, again, a little more art. So.
How many members do you have right now?
Oh gosh, that is a great question. I should know that, and I am not sure that I do.
Ballpark.
I'll say 450.
450.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's a great number.
Yeah.
And every time you open the enrollment, so it's about every 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, about 4 months, I think.
Yeah, so it's about 3 times a year. You announce it on your Instagram, obviously.
Yeah.
How much does it cost for people to sign up as a member?
$13 a month.
$13 a month for all that goodness.
Yeah, for all that goodness.
That's amazing. Okay, so I believe this episode is actually going to be on air after the new enrollment. So after this May enrollment, what's the next one people need to be looking?
I'm gonna guess, and I'll say like September again.
September. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll make sure to put all the information on the blog post with all the links, and so people can follow you and hop on. I wanted to continue to talk about the ugly art because I'm just fascinated in the process. I like it looks so simple, and I'm trying to comprehend. And I know that sometimes when you have those challenges, you have a random piece of paper. It can be, I don't know, a note card or a page from something, and then you do all kinds of different things. It's total mixed media. Sometimes you just apply paint. Sometimes you stitch on something or glue on something. So how do you have any premeditated idea for what you want to do, or you just put the timer on and whatever you have on the messy desk, you just grab it and work with it? How does this work?
I would say normally that is how this works. Thank you. Especially if it's the 5-minute, it is really important to kind of have stuff close at hand, I would say. Typically speaking, though, I would say that is kind of how I would work anyway. I've got like a cart that's got collage papers and that sort of thing. I've got like washi tapes, kind of inks, dyes, paint, and then paint brushes if I'm coming around the corner here on how my desk is set up. And a lot of times for me, I would say some of what the trick is for me is that it is kind of about the layers. When it comes to putting paper down, part of what my trick I would say would be to always, I'll talk about integrating papers. So you'll notice like I'll use washi tape or another piece of paper. Part of it, I would say somebody along the lines had told me that collage needs friends. So always putting together, they should be like touching. And the other way that I think to integrate papers would be to go ahead and put, like if you've put everything down, is to maybe put like a small wash over the top of them, or even running a drip over it. That kind of lets you know, oh, you know what I mean? I put this down and it's meant to be there. So always circling back just to make sure that it feels like it's supposed to be part of the page. So that's some of my trick, I feel like, is that whole integration thing. And then always remembering light and dark. And darks can even be just brought in with just a simple little bit of like charcoal, or I have been using a lot of like that charcoal dye. It's actually Rit dye, but I do love that. It is really a lovely color in bringing in the darks. So, and still allowing you to be able to see through it. That's part of it as well. Because otherwise, sometimes I feel like people are afraid of darks, like black is sometimes like really heavy. And when you put it on, it's just there. You know what I mean? But if you do kind of something that's a little more transparent, it provides that shadow and gives you the dark without being overwhelming. So,
yeah, I heard some painters say that never use black in your paintings, but I think it depends on what you're doing with your painting. So I have seen you working small. Obviously, a lot of your videos and Instagram posts are about small format, literally 4x6, or sometimes you're making little journals that are also the same kind of a size. Is that normally the size for you, or you actually make bigger art as well?
I can. I would say I like kind of a handful, we'll say, for a journal size. I do work larger. I do have a few. Again, then there's more thought on composition and what you're doing with that page, that kind of thing. But painting, when I move like to a canvas, I would say probably one of a favorite size would be like a 12x12 or like a 16x16. But I have painted as large as like 3 foot by 5 foot. And I have a couple like 4x6 canvases sitting in my garage, patiently waiting for me to break out a paintbrush. So yeah, it just kind of depends.
So when you work larger, it's mostly painting. You don't do mixed media, or do you?
And when I say mixed media, like I'll use anything if I'm going between acrylic to watercolor to pencil. I mean, sometimes even that I would say is kind of a mixed media. So even if I'm painting, it'll be still a mixed media. When I work that big, I wouldn't necessarily maybe put down collage. It will probably be more paint, but it'll again be just layers and layers. So yeah.
Let's take a short coffee break. Producing this podcast sure takes a lot of energy. Would you buy me a coffee so I can continue doing it? I would really appreciate it. The link is in the show notes and on our website, intheartscene.com. Thanks for supporting our show. do you do commission work or like client work, anything? Because when I go to your Instagram or to your YouTube, to me it's so like I am playing all the time. I'm just doing it for fun because guys, it feels good.
It
So
is a little bit that way.
and it's awesome, and I think everyone first of all should follow you and watch you, and everyone should adopt this kind of mindset that this is really a play and you got to do whatever the heck you want to do. But I assume you're a full-time artist now, you're a professional artist. So do you make any work that you are putting up in the galleries, or is available for sale, or do you take commissions? That's the question.
Yes, absolutely. So I do have work in a gallery in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The gallery is Piper Arts in Sioux Falls, and they have a variety of work there. So yes, I do check the professional box when asked. I have sold paintings. I do sell paintings. Um, I have done commissioned work as well for several things, although it's been a little while, I would say, since I've had commissioned work. I am still working part-time at kind of a different type of professional job, but hoping to go back to just being a full-time artist again here soon. So we shall see. But yeah, I actually, it's kind of interesting, the work itself. I was fortunate that some of the work was purchased by a business in Sioux Falls, which will actually be hosting an open house coming up here in April, and they invited the artists too. So I'll be curious to see who else, what other type of work they purchased. They purchased a whole series of mine, so it will be exciting to see it in its new home and see what other
That's awesome.
artwork they purchased. Yeah, so
That's amazing. That's awesome. I also wanted to ask you about how did you mentioned the COVID kind of was weird, and it was weird for everyone, and I know that it affected everybody in different ways. So what kind of shift did you feel for yourself in your art and in your life? I mean, how did COVID affected you as an artist?
yeah, that is a great question, actually. When we moved to South Dakota, I had left my job in the medical field and I was going to do art full time. And I was super proud of myself because I had kind of lined up teaching gigs starting in like April all the way through to like August. So I was super excited to have gotten that much set up, and then in kind of January, February, March, everything just started shutting down, and slowly all of that went away.
Yeah, we're talking about 2020.
Yep, 2020. Yep. And my work that I had done in the medical field, one of the coalition that I was a part of at the time actually reached out and said, we would love to have you come and join us. And so I ended up going to work for the coalition. So I actually worked for Southwest Minnesota. And it was really difficult. I would say that, I do think that art has for sure kind of like it's needed for me, like I need to create. But there were some days at the end of the day where I just didn't have the capacity to even do anything. There were some days where my creativeness was only just going to sit and hang out in my studio, and that was maybe all that I could do. Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. The other thing too is that I I'm only techie enough to be dangerous. That is what I always claim. And so up until COVID had hit, I wasn't very good at videos. I hadn't done any online teaching at all. And it really forced me to really look at that whole side of things. And so good, bad, or otherwise, I was able to get some assistance. I do use Robin Marie's Maker Tech U, and bless her heart, she has been a lifesaver. I have learned a ton through her and with her website, and then with Sandy and Ray, I was able to publish my first online class. And then in 2021, I was part of the Bookmaker Collective, and that too was that journal, the book that I made for there was really spectacular and scared the holy crap out of me because it was teaching in person, or not in person, teaching online live. Yes. So I was like, oh, scared to death. But once you got going, of course, it was good, and it was fine, and it was really good. And I loved being able to connect that way again, just because, just even being a part and seeing other creatives and just having all of us be together online was way better than not being able to at all. So I feel like, yes, it's been really hard. And I haven't maybe been as creative as maybe I would have wanted to. But at the same time, it's really pushed me outside of my comfort zone, which is good. And so at the same time, I've learned a ton, and I feel really blessed to be where I'm at now. So yeah, it's just been a journey again.
Yeah. And I did not know that you got back to the medical field during 2020. So that must have been really overwhelming. I don't know what kind of job you have performed personally, but I know that pretty much all medical personnel everywhere was overwhelmed. And even if you're not working graveyard shifts, just taking it in emotionally is really, really difficult when you are so close to it. So I understand how it might have affected um, your creative side, because sometimes it takes a backseat when we have to process some very difficult uh, emotional situations, or a hard physical job. Yeah. As
Yeah.
well. So um but did that shift your perspective on how to make art, or maybe you noticed any changes in, I don't know, a color scheme, or how you approach certain things, or the mediums you were leaning towards? So did COVID change anything, like, over that hump when you got back to the studio? And yeah, technical stuff, I also totally understand, because everyone went online. I started teaching online. I started this podcast during COVID, and that has been a huge learning curve for pretty much everyone in the art scene. Yeah, but I am also interested to know if that affected your creativity in some way, and if you have noticed any changes.
That's a great question too. Uh, I I can't really say, like, um I feel like no, but at the same time I should probably say yes, because I feel like I'm always thinking, well, what else can I do? You know what I mean? What's something else? And I feel like I have progressed. Um and like I've always loved kind of the well-worn, I'll say well-loved. So I love using like the coffee and that kind of stuff, just to provide kind of that, it's not a pristine, it does have a little grunge, and it's got a little worn and use,
Yeah, it's
and
good. Kind of has this
love.
vintage flair a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, and if you were to come to my house, you'd be like, oh, that's totally it. A little vintage, yeah. So I feel like I do try to be really mindful sometimes of the work and kind of the message that's being provided. And um, yeah, I would say I've just tried to be more mindful, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Well, can you talk a little bit about making journals? Because that's something I am trying to explore for myself. And I have watched your videos. I also have watched some other videos. I think her name is Kasha Avery.
Oh,
You
yes.
know her,
I
right?
love her.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, her junk journals are absolutely mind-blowing. So I am making an attempt, and it's kind of slow. I prepped the cover, and I'm collecting my papers very slowly. So I want to kind of get a word of wisdom and encouragement from someone who has done that already. So, uh, what is do you call them junk journals as well?
I do. Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about that? And assuming that not everybody who's listening to us knows what junk journal is, can you explain what it is and how to make one and
Yeah,
why?
sure. So a junk journal to me, and I do feel bad. I wish that there were maybe a slightly better term for it. Um, because I really feel like sometimes, especially when I'm like picking papers, or putting things together, like I'm using things that were maybe from the past, out of a book or a letter or something of that sort. So I'm using kind of this variety of papers, and they don't have to be the same size. There's all sorts of different ways to really, if you want it to be obviously the same size, you certainly can. But when it comes to journals, I mean, I like using like a file folder for kind of that outside substrate, or cardboard is good. I like integrating fabric and putting that into kind of that outside cover, or helping to kind of hold it together. And for me, I mean, I personally just keep the binding pretty simple. I just use the three holes and stitch it together. I don't do anything fancy. And if you've watched some of my other stuff, you'll know like I'm a hot mess when it comes to bookmaking. So it's like I'm not going to do the fancy stitches. We're just going to get this put together here. So but I do think again, what you're using for papers, and maybe you've, used them for jelly printing, or they were under paper, they happened to get messy when they were on your desk. Put all of those in. I do think that there's something magical about having some color or paint or some sort of mark down on your paper before you even get started. And I personally, again, I really like things that kind of stick outside of the book. Like I don't like it to be, straight across and that kind of thing. I like the different feel. That would be one of the other things. Like when I'm putting papers together and I'm putting together like a signature, you I would pay attention to how do the papers sit within that signature, so that when you go to put it into the book, you'll kind of have a little variety. So um, if I'm doing, yeah, I'll pay attention to kind of the color of the paper. So, one might be a really strong kind of darker neutral, one might be a little lighter weight. Anything that creates interest would be the other thing I would say. So a nice variety of colors, weights, anything like that. And yeah, again, just trying to always vary everything, and again, create a little more interest for the junk journals. Um, sometimes, like I said, they can be bigger, but I do like ones that are a little bit more of, like I said, kind of that handful or a smaller square. I find those easier to really use and not be overwhelming for people. It's easy to grab and work in. So.
All right. Well, so I have a couple of questions here.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
So, first of all, yeah, just to give a little bit of overview to our listeners, and I will make sure to put the photos and some videos on the blog post, so you have a better idea, like a visual understanding of what the junk journal is. But essentially, it's a collection of different papers that can be collaged or have marks or whatever, binded together into a little journal. Like it's like a book binding. It's like a mixed media and a book binding and collage all together. So my first question would be, why would anyone make one?
That's a great question. For me, I mean, I guess some of the first ones that I put together were really, I was trying to kind of maybe tell a little bit of a story. So, some of the papers that I put in, I was being really mindful over what kinds of papers I was putting in. So initially, they maybe weren't something, and you can decide, are you going to play in these a lot, or are you happy just kind of having that collection of papers together? Like, I have a few that I've put together, and I just like having them together, and then the book sits, and maybe I'll work in it later, but
So they represent some sort of a initial, like, sorry, idea that you have.
like yeah, like a story. I'm putting together kind of a little bit of a story. So maybe there's a letter in there, maybe there's some newspaper, maybe from that time period. um, I don't know, yearbooks are super fun to include, just some of the pictures and that sort of thing, but just kind of putting together your own story over what what your story would maybe be.
And then the other type, I heard that you are making them so you can actually use them as a journal and continue working inside the book, uh, adding something along the way.
Absolutely. So the other thing I really like about junk journals, and I'll be upfront when I say that, like, part of like my creative process is problem solving. And so I like the idea of having to fix something. I don't, not that it would ever be perfect, but you know what I mean? I'm never looking for perfection. So if the paper is different, or it's too thin, or I poked through, I'll fix it with tape, and you just keep correcting and fixing as you go. So I like the whole idea of kind of problem solving as I work in this journal, and having kind of the different types of papers and that sort of thing definitely creates some of that. If some paper is like, maybe it's hopefully not too brittle, but if you run into brittle, then you got to fix that, and I like the whole process of fixing and continuing to work. So yeah.
All right. Well, do you well, I was going, my next question was, what do you do with them then? So you store them, you display them, you give them as gifts. I mean, aside from those that you keep working on, so what would be like the application otherwise?
I have had several published,
Oh,
and I do
okay.
like, yeah, I've sent a few in. I've had some of the journals published. Some of the books have been. I do like buying and supporting from other artists. So some of the other journals that I work in are ones that I have purchased from other artists, which I think is kind of cool. Being
That
able,
is really fun. Yeah.
yeah, put your work into somebody else's books, I think is really, there's something kind of charming about the mix of the two. So that part has been really good. But again, I just kind of like looking at them, looking back through, seeing where I was at, and that time period. So yeah, I keep most of them. I have let a few smaller ones go, like a zine type of book, those sorts of things. But the larger journals, yeah, are the most for the most part I keep. So
All right. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour.
wow.
And yes,
That has gone quickly.
you know what? I gave up on the idea of keeping this podcast under like 30 or 40 minutes, like normally people would do, because it is never the case when you're talking to an artist. First of all, it's just a pleasure of spending your time talking about creative process or what is going on in the artist's mind and artist's life. And there's always so much to say, and I feel like even squeezing it into 1 hour is a challenge. So at least I'm trying to be mindful about the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
But this is really like if we stop in 30, 40 minutes, it's about nothing. It's like I have to have a set of questions and it will be very dry and not interesting. So for the top of the hour, I would like to ask you a couple of final questions. Uh, Keeping the idea of making ugly art and being free to play, what would you, the words of wisdom for emerging artists, for young artists, or for someone who is still discovering their voice, even if they're like in mid-career, or yeah, pretty much to anyone who is interested in exploring something different in their process. So what would you say? Your advice?
I would say for sure, one of the things that I feel that makes me successful is a good color palette, and really knowing and having a good sense of color. I truly had a color wheel that hung in my studio, and I would literally grab a color initially and put that down. And then I would have to look at the color wheel to see what my next choice was going to be until I could just automatically just make that choice without looking. So I feel like a really good, if you've got a really good understanding of
That's
color.
actually very interesting because, getting back to the beginning of the conversation when I mentioned that you were using paint water, like having a good sense of color is really important if you guys are going to use muddy water.
Yes. For sure. Yeah, I really do feel like a good sense of color is super important, and if you understand kind of your color choices and that sort of thing, I feel like a good color palette hides like a whole composition of sin. You know what I mean? If your composition is off, but your color palette's great, I feel like that helps. Um, what else? Oh, the other thing that I really feel like is helpful is I have a card in my studio that basically says why. And so when you look at something and you think, oh, I really like that. Why do you like it? And you keep asking yourself that. Well, I like the orange. Okay, well, why do you like the orange? Is it warm? Is it yellow? More yellow? Is it more red? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it transparent? What is it that you like about that particular color? Or why do you like the stripes, or you like the marks, or what is it? And you just keep asking yourself that question as you're looking through things. Like if you're on Pinterest, or if you're looking through a magazine, why do you like whatever that is? And then you think, oh, okay, well, I know I like stripes, I know I like polka dots, and that sort of thing, so that when you go back to your studio and you're making something, you think, oh, I know what I like. I like this, and you can try it. So I feel like, especially when I was new, the color palette and really being mindful of that made a big difference. And again, really concentrating on what I liked, why I liked it was super helpful in trying to figure out how I was going to create. So,
yeah, I think this is a really great advice because I'm kind of noticing for myself even that, I always thought that I am all over the place. I'm making portraits, and the next day I'm making some abstract, and then I'm jumping into some collage, and like God knows. But a couple of friends, artists, told me that, yeah, well, you might not see it, but I can see that this is you. You have a hand. You have some. So, and I think this question, why, is really important for understanding yourself, especially when you are struggling and you're feeling like you don't really have a voice yet, you haven't developed it. You still have it in you. You just need to discover it step by step. Like now I'm starting noticing that there's certain colors I'm being drawn to, right? Or certain shapes I'm being drawn to. So those are the things that go from one piece to another. Doesn't matter if it's a portrait or abstract, right? So yeah, that self-discovery and that question of why for every single little thing, I think is very important. Thank you for that.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All righty. Well, is there anything else? Like, this is a good timing for you to plug anything you want.
Oh, goodness. So, the Ugly Art Club, we do have a
Yep.
website.
We'll make sure to put that on.
Okay, sounds good. I do also have an online class that's coming out. The class will actually open on March 20th, but it's called The Personality of a Paper Doll, and it is being hosted by Tiffany Goff Smith, my good friend. There is an early bird pricing out right now. If you go to the class and you put in the coupon Paper Play, that's $10 off through March 19th, and then after that it'll be
we won't be on air before May. So,
sounds
but
good.
okay. But we can do it on Instagram. I'll make sure to. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So.
All right. So, Ugly Art Club, everyone should follow and watch out for the next enrollment, which by the time this is on air, probably going to be September. I'll make sure to put all your videos. So the class that you were talking about, is it a limited time class, or it will be available for everyone to purchase and watch as they go? Is the on demand?
Yep, on demand,
It's on
lifetime
demand.
access. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I think everything we were talking about, I will make sure that I have links and references. I'll double check everyone's names and everyone's Instagrams, all your partners that you mentioned. Yay! It's been an hour. It's been a great conversation. I'm so glad that we finally connected. I was a little bit intimidated asking you.
Oh, I really appreciate this. I felt very honored that you asked. I really thank you for, again, your patience with me with the schedule and the timing. And yeah, I appreciated it. This was wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes, it's very inspiring. I love that. I loved every minute of it. Well, Kristin, thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time, for your wisdom, for shedding some light on very interesting aspects of art, which again, everybody should go and take a look at that. And I will see you soon in the art scene.
Sounds super good. Thank you so very much for the opportunity.
Bye, Kristin. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
It has been another episode of In the Art Scene podcast. If you liked today's conversation, please give us a good review on Apple and go listen to other great stories. Check out our website intheartscene.com or follow us on Instagram at intheartscene for more content. If you are a creative and you want to share your story, shoot us a message from the website or DM us on Instagram. Look forward to seeing you next time in the art scene.